What's up YouTube? Mike here from Techno GI, and today I wanted to do a rumor roundup video, and this is about the iPad Pro. Is this thing fact or fiction, or is it just legend? Is this thing ever going to come to fruition? And if so, what are the specs going to be? And like I said, numerous sources, so let's take a look at what I got so far. So according to Mac Rumors, these are some of the rumors going around about the leaked specs supposedly. So let's get started. So first off, release date. Typically, ever since 2012, we know Apple has debuted a new iPad or iPhone in October or November every year. So it stands to reason that if the iPad Pro does exist and is going to come to fruition, we'll actually see it in October or November at the latest. But at a minimum, they'll probably announce it in October, and you'll be able to buy it in November. So, of course, that launch is also going to coincide with iOS 9, which would make sense. And we all know from WWDC the iOS 9 features that have been released, where you've got the multi-window finally, where you can do the split screen finally. I mean, that all kind of points and makes sense to a larger iPad display. But again, time will tell, so we'll see. So let's get to some of the design rumors. So according to Apple Insider, the iPad Pro will sport a significantly larger display than the previous models, measuring in at 12.9 inches, and then other reports suggested a smaller screen of 12.2 inches. And of course, by comparison, the Surface Pro 3 is 12 inches, and of course, what I'm using right now, the Surface 3 is 10.2 inches. So honestly, I mean, 12.9 inches, that's a pretty big display. So I would be very shocked if they release, I mean, that's almost a 13-inch tablet. I mean, that's a big freaking tablet. I mean, I would think it would be more around 12 inches, which would be the kind of the sweet spot for a tablet. But we'll see. I mean, 12.2, 12.9. I think it'll be more toward the Surface Pro 3 size of 12 inches. So, but we'll see. And of course, it's safe to assume that the iPad Pro is going to stick with the same colors, either space gray, gold, or silver. So we'll see, unless they come up with a new color just for the iPad Pro. Personally, I'd like to see a black design, more of a darker, kind of like the MacBook, new MacBook, but we'll see. But as far as storage goes, expect it to be kind of on par with the current gens. You got your 32, 64, or 128 gigabyte, and because it is Apple, don't ever expect expandable storage. They would rather charge you the extra $100 for the next tier instead of giving you that option. So in the Apple world, I think expandable storage is just a pipe dream. As far as the processor goes, it will probably have a new A9 chip, unless they decide to go with more kind of toward what the Surface does and actually run an Intel chip. But who knows? I think it would be the Apple's own A9 or A9X, whatever they want to call it. But I think it'll be their own chip. Next, talking about the operating system, like we already talked about, iOS 9. Of course, that's what's coming in October. And we saw all the features, or most of the features, released during the Worldwide Developers Conference. But it would be interesting to see if they do go with iOS 9, or if they go with some kind of hybrid, kind of like when Microsoft has done with the Surface tablets, where you actually be able to do, you know, more of a desktop thing for productivity, and then you have your tablet mode. We'll see. But again, we all saw what iOS 9 featured, and of course the most prevalent thing was, of course, the new multitasking features. So that's kind of one of the big giveaways, where it kind of points toward a possible iPad Pro. And of course, for the iPad, iOS 9 is going to feature the new gesture-based controls, along with split screen view, and of course advanced multitasking features. And again, also you're probably going to have the new Force Touch thing built in to the screen, which brings me to the next, which is the display. Different reports suggest that Apple may bump up the iPad's already high resolution to 2732 by 2048 pixel density, and this of course would result in a pixel density matching that of the iPad Air 2, but of course that's going to be scaled up to a larger display. Additionally, it's been rumored that for a while that the iPad will feature, like I said, Force Touch technology, and that's going to be built right into the touchscreen. And of course, this would add a new layer of interaction to the iPad, along with adding pressure sensitivity, if I could say that. And of course, that'll be a benefit for folks that like to do basically for your artists who like to use the iPad. And of course, a new Bluetooth pen stylus is also rumored to be in the works, which of course Steve Jobs is famous for quoting that, essentially, I don't remember the exact quote, but he was not a fan of stylus and he thought it was kind of dumb. And he also said the same thing about larger phones, but of course you get the iPhone 6 Plus, so you know, things change. So I think Apple, of course, will get with the time. So we could possibly see a Bluetooth stylus. I mean, there's aftermarket ones out there. Donut Jot Touch Pro is one of them. I've used it. I own it. It works okay, but it's not ideal. Obviously, it would be better to have either a Wacom or an Intrig digitizer. But we'll see. Again, these are all rumors, but I personally don't think that would be one of the accessories that would come with it. But of course, there'll be multiple aftermarket ones out there. But who knows? But you know, with the success of the Surface Pro 3, and of course you got your fabulous from Samsung, the Note series, I mean, you never know. Obviously, people like having the stylus. At least it's kind of a niche thing for artists and digital ink folks, but who knows? It's out there. Next on the list would be NFC. And of course, we know with the Apple Watch and of course the newer iPhones, we've got that, and that's all because of Apple Pay. Right now, obviously, the current iPads don't support that, but personally, I don't think the iPad Pro would support it either, especially if it's a 12.9-inch display. I mean, why would you want to pay with a almost 13-inch tablet? I see you walking up to the cashier. Here you go. So I think it doesn't really make sense to have NFC on an iPad that large. I could see on the current gen iPads, but if they do have a Pro model with almost a 13-inch display, I don't really see them incorporating NFC, because really the whole purpose of that in the Apple ecosystem is dealing with Apple Pay. And if you're paying with a 13-inch tablet, I mean, more power to you. I guess it's the same folks that like to go take pictures with their tablets as well, kind of the same principle. But it's in the rumors that you'll have NFC, but personally me, I don't buy that one, but who knows. As far as connectivity, supposedly Apple is shifting it to the USB-C port, which would make sense because that's what they've got on the new MacBook. Of course, if they do that for all your current accessories, of course, I'm sure Apple will be more than happy to sell you an adapter where it'll be a Lightning to a USB-C, and it'll probably cost you about $50. But I do think that's very plausible that they'll shift to the USB-C, because it does have future applications which would benefit the iPad, but of course for your current accessories it would kind of suck. And of course, one option is, of course, this is not typical of Apple at all, because they would rather you buy an adapter, but they could have two ports. You could have your standard Lightning port, so it's backwards compatible, or USB-C, which again, since it's Apple, I think that one would be total BS, because again, they're more than happy to sell you an adapter. So they did the same thing when they went from their old 30-pin to the Lightning. You know, you could buy that adapter for, you know, $50 or whatever it costs. So I don't see that happening, but I do see, again, USB-C. So one port only, and it'll probably be the USB-C. And again, that's following the pattern of the MacBook, the new MacBook, which only has the one USB-C port. And of course, there's also a slight chance that the iPad Pro will also feature inductive charging, which we've seen with the Apple Watch, which will be actually pretty cool. Essentially, that's wireless charging, which is much better, I think, than having to plug it in. Just be able to set it on some kind of tray or whatever. Basically, kind of the same stand that you have for the Apple Watch. So I think that's a high possibility, and I think that would actually be pretty darn cool, personally. And finally, coming to price. I imagine it's going to be priced similar to the current gen iPad Air 2, with the exception of course, there'll probably be a price bump of $100, $200. So whatever the current gen iPad Air 2 price is, add about $100, $200 for that, and that's what you'll get the Pro. And of course, for boost in storage, it'll probably follow the same tier, where if you want to go from the 32 to the 64, it'll be an extra $100. So I imagine they'll follow that exact same price pattern. So probably add $200 to the current iPad plus $100 for each jump in storage, and then of course barring any accessories. So a couple questions I kind of have, and maybe you guys can answer in the comments, or rumors you've heard, or these are more kind of what I would like to see more than questions. But keyboard smart cover. Personally, if they do release an iPad Pro, I would like to see them have a smart cover. that's essentially just like the type cover for the Surface. I mean, just something maybe a little lighter. And again, that brings the next question, would be mouse support. Will it support you being able to use a mouse? Hopefully so, if it is a Pro version. So I'm hoping Apple will kind of take a cue from Microsoft and make a smart cover that's essentially almost a knockoff of the type cover, to be honest with you. I would buy it. And then my other question would be hybrid OS. So like I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's most likely would come with iOS 9. It would be nice if it had a hybrid OS, but then I just think it would be cutting into the MacBook sales. So personally, I'm just curious what you guys think. These are kind of the rumors that I found, kind of my thoughts. I'm curious what you guys think. Just leave it in the comments below. I mean, I do read all those, and I'm just curious if you guys are kind of on the same sheet of music as I am. And then finally, honestly, I think these are just my thoughts. We've got all these rumors, but more than likely, I just because it's Apple, I honestly don't think that this will ever come to fruition as far as an iPad Pro. I think we'll have all these specs minus the screen size, and this is going to be rolled into the iPad Air 3. So I think the iPad Air 3 will be what we kind of wanted in the Pro, except for the screen size. I think that's going to stay the same, with the exception of, I think the iPad Air 3 is going to add the USB-C, and of course it's going to have iOS 9, which has got all your different multitasking gestures. But and they may even kick out some kind of smart cover and even the stylus. But I think the iPad Air 3 will essentially be the iPad Pro. I don't think we'll ever see a larger iPad, and that is just because of the MacBook. I mean, the new MacBook, essentially they'd be competing against themselves. So if they release an iPad Pro, why would you want to buy a MacBook? I mean, or vice versa. So just something to think about. So I don't think it's ever going to come to fruition. I think it will be the iPad Air 3. Anyway, curious what you guys think. Like I said, leave it in the comments below. If you have not done so, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button, and then always feel free to give me a thumbs up. Thanks.